because we are jumping into this final. Make some noise for your finalists as we're seeing the Rillaboom and Kyogre let out for Oliver in the face of the Miraidon and Ogerpon for William.
Couldn't be much different sort of leads here, right? We've got nice fake out support and a set up little Kyogre that's a little bit slower, but versus Miraidon and Ogerpon half-flame, like the definition of offense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we see Rillaboom led very, very commonly against opposing Miraidon. You've got the terrain. You always get the grassy terrain in the face of a Miraidon lead. So the Miraidon is really not doing as much damage as it would like to do. But you've got the Ogerpon next to it, which will cover really nicely if the Kyogre does want to go for that grass-type terrestrialization. Yes, the rain is up, but you'll still be hitting incredibly hard. It's effectively a neutral hit, and we've seen how strong Ogerpon can be itself.
And here's a Terra straight out of the gate. Turn 1 in our Masters Finals here. It's that Kyogre going into that Terra Grass. Really crucial for this matchup versus the Miraidon teams. Allowing this Kyogre to most likely survive any attack from it here, bar a very powerful Draco Meteor. But first, it's that fake out into the Ogerpon, preventing any grass. All 5 moves coming out there. But the Draco Meteor into this Assault Vest Rillaboom is not enough for a KO, allowing this Rillaboom to stick around just that little bit longer. Kyogre, Orange Balls, it's missed before. It's going to miss again, that Miraidon, but most importantly, that Ogerpon takes a big chunk of damage.
Yeah, that was a lot of damage into that Ogerpon, but that's the shaky of accuracy for Origin Pulse, and already a turn 1 miss is incredibly unfortunate for Oliver. But he was saying in his interview, you can sometimes afford to miss those Origin Pulses. Yes, you don't want to in a regional championship final, but it would have been a resisted hit into the Miraidon. I would argue that the more important hit is into that Ogerpon, because now it's in range of a second Origin Pulse very, very comfortably. Although you have committed your grass terrestrialization immediately, it's going to be pretty good against this Miraidon that's now gone for the Draco Meteor. That was the smarter choice to lock into in the face of the grass terrestrialization, but you're -2, and you don't have your electric terrain. You probably do need to be considering switching out that Miraidon to be able to reset that special attack drop, to be able to reset the electric terrain. But then if you switch out something, there's no other water resist available on William's side of the field, unless it's the Whimsicott available. But anything that's switching in here, as the Miraidon is switching out, oh, well, that's going to be the Iron Hands. It's a bulky Pokemon, but Origin Pulse is a really strong attack.
Let's see if that is the case, Jamie. Oak double switch, it looks like, actually. Ogerpon getting out of there, too, versus the Urshifu coming in instead. Maybe predicting a little bit more of a defensive play from Oliver this time. Drum beating straight out here, though. A really interesting choice on Oliver's Rillaboom, even. Straight into that Urshifu, doing a massive, massive chunk of damage as it comes in. Origin Pulse double connects this time, KOing that Urshifu before it does anything. And that Iron Hands, yeah, definitely bulky, but still doing a big chunk of damage.
That was incredibly respectable damage from an Origin Pulse into one of the specialist bulky Pokemon we know when it's carrying that Assault Vest, that Iron Hands. Almost half damage, but as mentioned, Miraidon is able to immediately join back onto the field, and the grassy terrain is overwritten. We're back to electric terrain. Now the Miraidon is at full power once again. It's going to be able to go for the Draco Meteor and do some absolutely huge damage. The Rillaboom is probably even in range of a Volt Switch even, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's the move of choice for the Miraidon. Save your Draco Meteors maybe for the future. The Kyogre is incredibly heavy as well. You've got Low Kick available on this Iron Hands. That would do some absolutely massive damage, while you also have fake out pressure. So actually, what's wrong with just a fake out into the Kyogre and a Volt Switch into the Rillaboom? I don't see any drawbacks to that.
No, same, yeah. And if Rillaboom dares to switch out, at least you've got Miraidon in the back again, just in case Rillaboom comes in to reset into the grassy terrain. So, yeah, that's why Miraidon Choice Specs Volt Switch is just like the set you run with Miraidon, right? Because it's defensive and offense at the same time. So Rillaboom does indeed switch out here. Oliver realizing that that grassy terrain is a really key opponent to reducing the damage of this very threatening dragon here. And Amogus is a great switch into. Protect from Kyogre there, as from a potential fake out plus double play. But yeah, there's that Volt Switch. So what do we think we're going into here, Jamie?
Yeah, well, we've already seen it. It has to be the Ogerpon, because the Urshifu was taken care of very, very nicely on that second turn. The Ogerpon's going to be coming in the face of an Amogus. That's pretty reasonable for it. Usually you'll be able to threaten huge damage with the Fire-type Ivy Cudgel, but you've got the rain up. I'm not sure that Amogus is in range. Oh, it might be up to this, though.
So, yeah, maybe slightly there, and a little bit rocky helmet chip back there. So, a slightly spiky helmet did probably about the same amount of damage as a giant Iron Hands' leg into that mushroom, because that's not the heaviest of Pokemon. But Ogerpon coming in here is still really nice for William. Rain is still up, but it will run out at some point, too. So if William can kind of stall it out a little bit and preserve that Ogerpon, he might be able to use that Ivy Cudgel to even greater effect.
Yeah, and maybe to the Pokemon waiting it in the back for Oliver, because he's still hasn't revealed his fourth, and he's able to have done some really significant damage to the Pokemon that's on the field for William at the moment. The Iron Hands might be in range of an Origin Pulse. It did just under half damage, and Iron Hands is just under half health, but it's not taking Origin Pulse this turn at least. It is immediately switching out back into that Miraidon.
I like the switch, yeah. It's unlikely that there would be an Ice Beam trait into that slot, so a fairly safe switch here. But Mugus is actually doubling straight back out this turn into that Urshifu, so yeah, not the Rillaboom, which can still come in and override the terrain, and that is that Rapid Strike Urshifu. But the Spiky Shield comes up this turn, so let's see if there has been actually an attack from Oliver. Yes, it is that Origin Pulse, and it's not going to do too much to this Miraidon, assuming it hits this time, which it does.
Yeah, it does hit, and that was respectable damage, but on that first turn, if that Origin Pulse had hit, that Miraidon is for sure in range of a close combat. After just one Origin Pulse, that's going to be really close. But then the Ogerpon has Follow Me, so you could go for the Follow Me to keep that Miraidon safe from any of the attacks that the Urshifu will want to go for. At the same time, you really want to be turning on the offense into this Kyogre. It's just sat on the field for the entirety of the match. Yes, it did go for its Grass Terrestrialization to keep it safe from the Miraidon, but it hasn't actually really been threatened at the moment. William's just been taking the damage and pivoting about and targeting not the Kyogre, and it's been free to go for these Origin Pulses. That's what Oliver was talking about. Yes, he did miss the first one, but he's been given so many opportunities to land more and more.
So I think we might be able to find out this turn how much Ogerpon Half Flame can do. We found out last game it was picking up so many KOs against Alex Gomez's team, and here it is. But it is in the rain, but this is into a Kyogre.
Oh!
But there's the Surging Strike straight into it, with the Choice Scarf able to outspeed, and that is absolutely denied.
Yeah, that's a completely wasted Terrestrialization from that Ogerpon. We won't know for now how much damage that Ivy Cudgel would have done to that Kyogre. Instead, that is a KO'd Ogerpon, and that's respectable damage still into that Kyogre with the Choice Specs Volt Switch. But now this Iron Hands is going to have to take an attack from this Kyogre. It might be the Ice Beam, because that would have been able to knock out the Miraidon from the range it's at. And if that's the case, it would survive. But if it's Origin Pulse, that's going to be in range, because it's now single target.
100%. And now William is down to...
Oh, and it was!
There we go. Origin Pulse, single target, and it connects. And Iron Hands does go down. I mean, I think even with a miss there on Kyogre, I think Oliver still has so many pieces there to be able to protect from the potential fake out next turn and to see to what the Miraidon was going to do to be able to reposition, right?
Yeah, you still had the Rillaboom waiting in the back to be able to overwrite the terrain. You still have the Amoonguss as well. Like, Oliver still has all 4 Pokemon here.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic showing in this first game. I don't really see a way back for William for this Miraidon. Yes, it is such a strong Pokemon. But if you lock into Draco Meteor into the Kyogre, that probably KOs with the electric terrain, but it won't if a Rillaboom switches in. And whenever you want, you can just get your Rillaboom in. You can fake out. You'll overwrite the grassy terrain. You'll be able to Spore again. Even now, the Surging Strikes without the rain will still be doing very respectable damage. The Kyogre was just allowed to sit on the field the entire time. That Volt Switch happened just as rain finished, and Kyogre was allowed to just attack and attack. And we've seen the damage rack up. Yes, there was the initial miss of the Origin Pulse, but that didn't really matter because so many other Origin Pulses were able to connect, and so much damage was allowed to happen.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of Origin Pulse. If you run it on a bulky Kyogre, you're going to be sitting around for a little bit longer. So yes, it means you're likely to get a flinch, or not flinch, you're likely to get a miss, but it means you're also going to hit most of them, and it's overall going to be consistent enough that it's so worth it.
Yeah, it's absolutely worth it. Oliver is just playing 100% safe here. He has an absolute path to victory. The protect on the Kyogre, you could have just gone for the Ice Beam, but if a Draco Meteor kept getting critical hits, that could have been a way back. As mentioned, there is the critical hit on the Dazzling Gleam, which would not have been enough to KO that Rillaboom, but because that did end up happening, that was a KO. But it doesn't matter at this point, because the Miraidon has locked into Dazzling Gleam, it's not going to be able to deal with this Kyogre in the slightest.
Yeah, it's 100% accurate, but this Kyogre also has 100% accurate Ice Beam, which it's so good at using into Miraidon, which can no longer Terra. So yeah, Oliver definitely has this game 1 in hand at the moment. The question is, what can William do for game 2?
Attack the Kyogre. He ignored the Kyogre for so long. Oliver's able to take this first game with Kyogre just going for Origin Pulse and Origin Pulse and Origin Pulse, and there was nothing to stop it. So you need to start doing the damage. Oliver was perfectly content to immediately Terrestrialize into the Grass type. It wasn't even necessary. Didn't take any Electric type attacks until like turn 5 when the rain finally ran out. So yeah, I think William needs to start prioritizing this Kyogre. It is obviously the main damage dealer coming out from Oliver's side of the field. Yes, Urshifu will be able to do a lot of damage, especially so when you're in the rain, but you've got to start dealing with this Kyogre quicker.
I feel like William bringing the Urshifu was maybe a little bit of a mistake there, because we saw there was so much grass type there that obviously it just went down in one turn as it kind of came in, but there is just not a lot it would have then been able to offer in future turns either. If that had been a Whimsicott going in there instead, Light Screen maybe would have been able to go up and suddenly take on those Kyogre's attacks, which were just constantly coming out. And so I think William definitely has something in the bag here. And what I also liked is that Oliver had a Calm Mind Kyogre, never went for Calm Mind, didn't, just in case, say, Whimsicott came in to punish it with Encore, but it didn't need to, it just kept clicking Orange Pulse.
Yeah, and it is very, very respectable damage even without a Calm Mind. I think that's one of the main things that a Calm Mind Kyogre has over a Calm Mind Terapagos. Terapagos ends up starting pretty weak, but then the Kyogre already has that Rain boost on top of it, giving that multiplier on the Origin Pulses, so it's able to do the damage. It's able to get those 2-hit knockouts that some of the other Pokemon aren't able to do. It was able to KO the Urshifu on the switch, and with a really nice drum beating into the Ogerpon, by the way, which would have done almost nothing. So very, very nice play from Oliver to take the initiative in that turn too.
Yeah, really, really well played. And I think from that match, we can really see that Oliver had probably practiced this matchup quite a bit too.
Yep.
He knew exactly what to do. He terrored it just instantly and knew that that was the play to go forward from there. And positioning of that Choice Scarf Urshifu, which we've not seen a lot of this weekend. It's mostly been Focus Sash or Mystic Water as well. That Choice Scarf was really key to be able to outspeed Ogerpon and just deal with any sort of fire-type threat that might be threatening anything that is then grass on Oliver's end. Obviously, like that Kyogre.
Yeah, absolutely. Just wasting the Terra from the Ogerpon, because that would have, well, I'm very curious how much damage the Terra Fire Embody Aspects Ivy Cudgel would do still in the rain to the Fire Kyogre, to the Grass-type Kyogre, but we will never know. Well, at least we might know in the future games, but at least in that first game, the fact that it was Choice Scarf allowed it to just get that outspeed and the KO. But I guess if it wasn't Choice Scarf, you could have gone for an Aqua Jet for the KO, but then you were still pinning regardless with the Urshifu. It may seem odd to bring Urshifu into a Miraidon matchup, but it actually worked very effectively.
Yeah, it did. Like, it was exactly what Oliver needed to be able to outspeed exactly what he needed to. And without a Whimsicott to set Tailwind, or a Farigiraf to come to even set Trick Room, Urshifu was just let free on Oliver's end to be able to outspeed exactly what it needed to be able to pressure those KOs and make just those ends games a little bit cleaner.
Yeah, it does seem so. I think your call out of the Whimsicott is an entirely reasonable one for William. The Urshifu is a very strong Pokemon, but the fact that it was just immediately dealt with, something like the Whimsicott would have been able to switch into that Origin Pulse and that drum beating. It would have comfortably survived, and I think the Light Screen might be a very, very good shout into this match. Because of the fact that Origin Pulse was just clicked over and over again, Light Screen would really reduce the damage output.
It would. So the question is, I suppose, does Oliver make any adjustments at this point, anticipating William to maybe make adjustments?
I don't think it really needs to, because this has got to be the matchup that you practiced, right? Because it's the world's winning team.
Surely!
Must have your matchup there. So, yeah, we will have to see if there's going to be any adjustments as we're about to get back into this game. People in the venue, please show your support for William and Oliver. Let's start to get into this Game 2 of the Birmingham Regional Championship Final.
Okay, let's see who we're leading out here. It's that Miraidon and Ogerpon versus the Amoonguss and the Urshifu as well. So, slight little switch up here, especially on Oliver's end. So not actually directly leading with that Kyogre here, which I quite like, because I think if William was seeing that Kyogre lead initially, then he might have switched up leads to be able to deal with it this time. So Oliver sees at least if William was going to make any adjustments, sees probably not, but with that Urshifu U-turn, he might be able to switch things out to get that Kyogre eventually back in.
Yeah, if this isn't the U-turn, then the Urshifu is really under threat on this turn. Obviously, a Wood Hammer would do huge damage and ignore any Rage Powders that could have come out from the Amoonguss. Obviously, a World Switch is absolutely going to KO a Choice Scarf Urshifu, probably even 4 of them. So, yeah, you're almost certainly going to see the U-turn here, and that is exactly what we're seeing to start off this game.
So U-turn and really good chip as well into that Ogerpon. We saw it take multiple hits last time for it to eventually go down, and that's going to be probably really crucial for later in the game. So the Rillaboom coming in too, as it always wants to do in front of Miraidon, and should be able to take any of its attacks from this Miraidon if it goes for that particular slot. But now Amoonguss is free to potentially spore this turn as well into either of these slots. So the question is, has Oliver gone for it? But if William again has a Whimsicott in the back, like he did versus Alex, the Spore might not be able to go off in either target.
Oh, but it's not. It's the Iron Hands instead. So if this is a Spore into that slot, it is going to sleep. But it's Ivy Cudgel from the Ogerpon. Is it going to be strong enough at full HP?
Oh!
It is! It does pick up the one-hit knockout on the Amoonguss. Absolutely clutch, because that could have been either a Sludge Bomb for huge damage into the opposing Ogerpon, potentially picking up a KO, or it could have put the Iron Hands to sleep. But no, it is immediately taken care of.
I feel like a lot of Amoonguss can actually survive that hit as well from a non-Terran Ogerpon.
I expected it to.
Yeah, so that's really interesting that William's Ogerpon is able to get that KO. He's probably trained it to be very, very strong to be able to kind of push the boundaries of those damage calculations. But Kyogre's in here, Jamie. So this is what Oliver's good at, is using that Kyogre to pressure so much damage.
Yeah, now this might be a little bit of an awkward turn because, yes, Rillaboom has the faster fake out, but then if you go for Fake Out into the Iron Hands to stop the Trader Fake Outs, you've got the mind game of do you go for Woodhammer into the Kyogre, or do you go for the Ivy Cudgel expecting a Terastallization? So it's maybe a little bit awkward here for the Ogerpon, which move of choice you're going to be going for. You could very safely go for the Ivy Cudgel into the Rillaboom to try and start taking care of that. But I don't think that would be able to pick up the knockout now that the rain is active. That's probably what was necessary for the Amoonguss on the previous turn, because obviously the Kyogre was left previously, it was left in the back, and without the rain that was a KO. But I think that with the rain on this turn, Rillaboom, if it is targeted by Ivy Cudgel, should be able to survive.
I think what we saw, though, this turn is that William locked the Ivy Cudgel into that Kyogre slot.
Ooh.
Not with a Terra, though, so it might not be getting any KOs, especially with the rain up, but it's still probably a lot of good damage if it's allowed to come off at this point. So first, though, is that U-turn. Seeing that Rillaboom naturally outspeed that Ogerpon is quite something.
Wow,
it switches out, which makes a lot of sense with the drum beating potential. But Rillaboom is out of there to come back in at a later point to reset the electric terrain when Miraidon comes back in. Urshifu coming in there could be dangerous, but there is an Ivy Cudgel. Great call from William. Insecto and doing 50%, not even terrored as well, Jamie.
Yeah.
Origin Pulse, though, does get the KO in return.
Yeah, it does, but this Iron Hands is able to shrug it off reasonably comfortably, so it's able to respond with a low kick, and Kyogre, being as heavy as it is felled to that attack, bringing Oliver down to his final two Pokemon.
That is a lot of damage from that Iron Hands. It's not even boosted by the electric terrain either, because the grassy terrain is up too, so showing off why low kick is a really nice choice, especially in a restricted Pokemon format. So much of the time you're getting that 120 base power move, and that's exactly why you use it.
Yeah, it is for sure. And now the Terrain War's been won, right? Yeah, but here comes in the Urshifu. Obviously, you don't want to bring in the Miraidon as the Rillaboom's coming in. So the Terrain War's been won. Oliver's down to his final two Pokemon. And then whenever you want, whether that's from one of your Pokemon being KO'd or immediately whenever you want to, you can switch in that Miraidon, overwrite the grassy terrain, get that electric terrain, and then do huge damage. That would allow the Draco Meteor for sure to KO the Rillaboom. Obviously, Urshifu would go down to any attack that the Miraidon would want to lock into. But you still got to contend with this Urshifu and this Iron Hands as well. At least you got Fake Out pressure on this turn with the Rillaboom, and we've seen it be incredibly speedy. If that Rillaboom is run as fast as possible, and an Urshifu's prioritized attack over speed, it can actually outspeed it. Only just, but it could.
It's good. Remains to be seen if we will find that out in this session here. Miraidon actually going for the hard switch straight back in, preserving a Fake Out for later with that Iron Hands in the back. So electric terrain going up here. It does put this Miraidon at potential risk of going down, but it is just a Fake Out to the Miraidon. So a really good call from William there. Surging Strikes as this Urshifu is likely to put it in range of whatever Grassy Glide this Rillaboom might be able to go for later. And so there's those 3 hits. Not quite doing 50% there, just because it is that just Choice Scarf and not a Mystic Water. Hitting all 3 times as it's so good at doing. But here's a close combat. It's that Rillaboom, and with a critical hit, it is able to get a 1-hit KO.
Yeah, that's a very, very nice critical hit. That's got to seal the game now. This Urshifu is not going to be able to get the 1v3, especially so that Miraidon's still in its Dragon typing. It's absolutely going to be able to resist the Surging Strikes. We're just 1 Electro Drift away from going into our game 3. We don't even need that. We're throwing in the towel for Oliver on the side of the field, and here we are, 1-1. This is what we want to see. Game 3 of the Regional Championship Final.
Game 3. Oliver Eskolin on the cusp of taking a second regional title, and William Bassolino already has achieved his highest placement at a regional level event, and is so close to actually taking it as well from Oliver. Both 1 game away.
Yeah, so close now. This is the moment. We're not down to the final match. We're down to the final game to determine our regional champion. That was a very, very solid adjustment from William going into that game 2. I think that the Kyogre being left in the back, the fact that the Ivy Cudgel KO'd the Amoonguss in 1 shot, that's unexpected to me. I feel like Amoongusses usually are able to survive that attack, so maybe Amoonguss has prioritized special defense in this case, because usually the rain is keeping it safe from that attack. But because Kyogre wasn't led and it was Urshifu instead, then that means that there was no rain. Maybe you could have U-turned into the Kyogre, and then you'd have been able to allow that to survive. But then there could have been the Volt Switch, and I think there was the Volt Switch into that Urshifu slot. That would have done huge damage to the Kyogre. So we'll have to see if there's any kind of adjustments into this game-deciding Game 3. Here we go. We're going back with Miraidon and Ogerpon, and we're back to what worked in Game 1 for Oliver. It is the Rillaboom and the Kyogre.
Back to game 1, but definitely not the same game here. Both of these trainers have played against each other already across these 2 games, and that means the first options they would have gone for before are going to be expected, right? And so going into the second game, do you still go for the same thing? Do you switch it up this time? But it looks like Williams absolutely decided, and Oliver, a very, very quick lock-in. And there is the Terra coming out instantly. And of course, it is that Kyogre going for that Terra Grass. Now, Jamie, what I'm not sure of, though, is this Ogerpon, based on the Ivy Cudgel damage last time, does a Terra Fire Ivy Cudgel enable a KO? We're not going to find that out just yet, though. Fake out into the Ogerpon and Draco Meteor into the Rillaboom. Not quite a KO.
Yeah, we saw that in Game 1. It does huge damage because this is a much speedier Rillaboom, but it's still not a KO. This time we do get the double connect of the Origin Pulse, doing absolutely massive damage to that Ogerpon and doing very, very respectable chip damage to that Miraidon.
So yeah, Williams still does have the option of just going for the Terrafire Ivy Cudgel into this Kyogre. And yet it did 50% last time with the same sort of stat distribution. So if William thinks he's able to get it because you've got Terrafire and then you've got the +1 attack from Embody Aspect, it might potentially be enough for a KO. Unless Oliver has Incineroar in the back to Intimidate, which he's never bought in the game, there's not a lot stopping that.
No, there's not a lot stopping that. It would have to be a Protect if this is going to be the double up, because that is the Terrestrialization into the Embody Aspected Fire-type Ogerpon, getting that attack boost. Is that going to be enough to allow a KO into this Kyogre if it does not protect this turn, which it did not? That is a Choice Specs Draco Meteor doing very good damage to that opposing Kyogre. We saw it do 50% previously, but no, the drum beating, because remember the Rillaboom is incredibly speedy. That puts the Ogerpon now slower than this Kyogre. It needs to connect this Origin Pulse, otherwise it will be KO'd. Something has dodged, and it's going to be the Ogerpon. The Origin Pulse! That means it survives this turn and is able to fire off the +1 Ivy Cudgel into this now Grass Terra Kyogre, and that is enough to pick up the KO, and the Restricted is gone on turn 2 for Oliver.
Kyogre, the whale, is defeated on Oliver's end, but it's not out just yet. Oliver has some very strong Pokemon in the back, and we've seen how this team across the weekend has been able to bring things back despite the Kyogre not even being here on the field. The rain is still there, Kyogre's presence is still there, and Urshifu Rapid Strike is here, threading a KO into either of these slots at the moment, and this Rillaboom has that priority Glassy Glide too, so it's definitely not over yet. Looking in the back, William does have that Iron Hands, which is pretty bulky, which could take some attacks.
Yeah, and I think after the Origin Pulse as well, that Miraidon's got to be in range of close combat, right? So maybe you go for the close combat here, and the fact that the Ogerpon is now only a Fire type and not a Grass and Fire type, was the damage from the drum beating going to be enough to get that KO onto the Ogerpon? Because it did a reasonable amount of chip, probably around the amount of HP that the Ogerpon does have. It's going to be incredibly close, but Miraidon's not taking a close combat if that is the move of choice for the Urshifu, because that's the double switch coming out. The Miraidon's replaced with the Urshifu, and the Ogerpon switched out to the Iron Hands.
So the Iron Hands coming in does prevent the opponents from doing some moves next turn with that fake out, giving Urshifu definitely an opportunity to break through any protects that might come out from the fake out itself. So there's the Sony Strike doing a really big amount of damage this time in this game because the rain is up this time. So doing over 50%, which is going to be really crucial for the next turn too. Drum beating into the switching Iron Hands is going to lower some speed. Not going to matter too much in this game, but with a critical hit, that might put it in range of a rain-boosted Surging Strikes, Jamie.
That might be crucial there, yeah, for sure. It would almost certainly be able to survive without the critical hit, but you get a little bit of grassy terrain healing as well. So That's going to be very close if that's in range. But of course, you still have fake out pressure active. I don't think we actually properly found out the speed order between the Rillaboom and the Urshifu. You could go for the Grassy Glide, of course, because there is grassy terrain, but there's always the threat of them Rhydon switching in to overwrite that. But because of how fast this Rillaboom clearly is, it's got to be near max speed, if not max speed. And that means that you can only just outspeed a Urshifu that's prioritized attack. Has a William prioritized attack in this case? Well, it doesn't matter on this turn. If Rillaboom is keeping itself safe, we've got that Amoonguss once again switching in.
Yep, Amoonguss doing it what it does best. That little mushroom coming right in there.
No fake out.
It is the Surging Strikes, though. Yeah, that's a lot of damage on that same hit there. Oh, okay,
that's not quite.
That is not quite enough. But 7 HP is enough for this Iron Hands to survive. And William gets away with getting an attack off on both Pokemon. Close combat into the Urshifu, doing a really good chunk, putting it in range of anything right now. What has William locked into on this Iron Hand is the Heavy Slam into the Amoonguss.
Helmet.
With another critical hit.
But the Iron Hands is gone because it was at such low HP. That's the Rocky Helmet recoil going to be able to take care of the Iron Hands. The Urshifu got away with it. It could have been KO'd there to a Drain Punch in combination with the close combat, but no. Oliver still has 3 Pokemon available. That means he wasn't forced to switch in the Rillaboom here and lose the terrain war. We've still got that war going on.
Exactly, but the Rhydon can just come in here, and even though Rillaboom could then switch in, it has to switch in. That's the whole thing, and then that means Miraidon is free to just go for an attack. The question is a Choice Scarf Surging Strikes enough to get this Miraidon? I don't know if it is, because obviously it's a resisted hit, but it's still in the rain, and maybe with a combination of Amoonguss potentially redirecting away any sort of attacks, we might be able to find a way to get the damage off.
I think that might be the decider in this game, because if you don't KO the Miraidon, it's getting a KO. Like, even Volt Switch will probably KO the Amoonguss from this range, so maybe you go for Dazzling Gleam, a Volt, it doesn't really matter. I think you just need to survive the Surging Strikes. But with the Rain Boost, that's going to be so close. We already saw it be so close on the Iron Hands and it wasn't able to clutch it out. But yes, the Rocky Helmet was able to. So, but the Miraidon's still got his Dragon typing. It's going to be redirected.
I know.
But is the Surging Strikes going to be strong enough?
Here we go, Surging Strikes from Oliver's Eskolin. That Choice Scarf into Miraidon. Oh, I don't know if it's going to be enough.
That's not going to be enough.
Number 2, I don't think so, but let's see. It could be a high roll on the 3rd hit. No, 8 HP. Miraidon survives on William's end. It's that Dazzling Gleam. We know he's locked into that, and that means Urshifu's going down. That means Amoonguss is chipped potentially into a KO range of William's own Urshifu.
Yeah, the Amoonguss has got to be in range now. Like, you're in the rain. Kyogre set the rain for this Urshifu. Yes, this is Rocky Helmet, and this is going to be recoil. But that's only going to do it in 2. You only get 2 rounds of Rocky Helmet. So now Oliver is forced into his final Pokemon. The Rillaboom always wants to switch in against the Miraidon, but it doesn't want to switch in against the Miraidon with still 2 partners remaining.
William is looking perplexed. He's looking confused. He's looking like he might be on the cusp of winning this. Rillaboom obviously comes in and then gets the grassy terrain, but it can only target 1 Pokemon. It's taken damage as well. Here it is. It's Assault Vest. It's bulky, but look at that. There's an Ogerpon in the back. There's an Urshifu. There's a Miraidon. There's not enough in the tank, Jamie.
No, you can just go for, well, maybe even a Dazzling Gleam is enough at this point. Doesn't really matter if it is. You've got close combat. You've got Ivy Cudgel available. You can just switch out your Miraidon and switch it back in to overwrite the terrain. There's nothing that can be done here. Even if the Rillaboom is able to get a KO this turn into the Urshifu, that doesn't matter. The terrain will be overwritten. Grassy Glide potential with priority is gone. And then that's a KO Rillaboom.
So there's the Detect as well to preserve 2 Pokemon at least for the remainder of the next turn. Grassy Glide actually does go into that slot, so William also gets away with this turn. And Ogerpon and Urshifu can both attack into the Rillaboom at the same time.
Yeah, this is just a close combat. This is an Ivy Cudgel, and this is a regional championship title for William Bassolino. After so many years of competing, he's going to be able to take this title. We confirmed the Rillaboom was actually faster, but wasn't even able to pick up the KO on the Ogerpon. This is a close combat from Urshifu. And finally, after so many years of competing, William Bassolino is your Birmingham regional champion.
William Bassolino, where have you been all our lives? Amazingly played. He just takes the world champion winning team, the team that everybody prepared for, and proved everybody wrong, took it all the way, and even defeated another regional champion to take his first regional win. Congratulations.
Absolutely fantastic. You can see what it means to him.